Good evening. I'm Ed Murrow. The name of the program is Person to Person. It's all live. There's no film. Tonight, we'll be visiting first with that poet and scholar, Mark Van Doren, and his wife. And then we'll be dropping in on producer Mike Todd and his wife, actress Elizabeth Taylor. We'll be ready to go in exactly 30 seconds.
Hi, I'm Bob Dixon. Our sponsor is Amoco Gas. Here are a few of the more than 39 different makes of automobiles sold in this country. Regardless of which car you drive, only one premium gasoline, Amoco Gas, gives you 100% power with no lead fouling guaranteed. For only clear, white, unleaded gasoline is refined to the highest natural octane without lead. In a few minutes, we're going to show you some exciting racing films. Now, back to Ed Murrow.
Mark Van Doren is a Pulitzer Prize poet, a professor at Columbia University, where he's taught English since 1920, and a short story writer. His latest collection is called Home with Hazel. Mrs. Van Doren, Dorothy, writes too. She's a novelist, at first a journalist. With The Nation, then she worked for the OWI and the Overseas Information Service during and after World War II. The Van Dorens have two sons, John, who teaches history at Brandeis University, and Charles, who teaches English at Columbia, and who recently made a rather prolonged appearance on television. The Van Dorens have two homes. One is in Cornwall Hollow in Connecticut, where they live when Mark is not teaching, and the other is a small walk-up apartment in that house, the one between the trees, in Greenwich Village here in New York. Good evening, Mrs. Van Doren.
Good evening, Ed.
Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Mr. Murrow.
Dorothy, tell me this. All three men in your family are educators. Didn't you ever want to teach?
No, I never wanted to at all. When I was finished with college, I was finished. Although, as a matter of fact, at The Nation, where I worked for many years, I felt I learned more geography and politics than I had at college.
Well, Mark Van Doren, just what are the rewards of a good teacher?
Well, teaching, Ed, of course, is its own reward. It has to be. But if I may be specific, I should say the greatest reward is the spectacle of mutual learning. That is to say, the teacher learns and the students learn at the same time. And mutual doesn't mean that the teacher learns merely about the students, although he does, or that the students learn about the teacher, although they do, but they both learn about a third thing, the subject, which is more important than both of them put together. The spectacle of that mutual learning is one of the most exciting, I think, in the world, and the spectacle is the reward.
Dorothy, I know you both write books. What's the total family output?
Well, actually, most of our books are in the country. We have very few here. In the country, we don't have gaps for orchids, for instance. But of these few books, I'm sorry to say, it looks really very bad, but these and these and these are ours.
How wonderful. How did you get started writing fiction, Dorothy?
Well, I never wanted to write anything else, actually. I just wanted to tell stories. That was it. I have written a great many political editorials, but in general, I wanted to tell stories. That was it.
Mark, I suppose you've read all of Dorothy's half-dozen novels?
I certainly have. I read them while they were being written, and I read them when they were first published. I read them all only 3 months ago, including the last one, which is not strictly speaking a novel. It is a book called The Country Wife, and I suppose the title is self-explanatory. I'm particularly interested in that book because I'm a fictional character in it. I'm called the Professor, and it's more or less true. Good portrait of you, is it? Well, I think so.
Tell me, Mark, how did teacher Van Doren become author Van Doren?
It's very hard to say. I can hardly remember that far back, although I do remember owing a great deal to my brother Carl, who was 9 years older than I, and both out in Illinois and in New York when I came here, was of the greatest assistance to me. He told me, for instance, what I might write about for a dissertation at Columbia. That became my second book, the book about Dryden. He introduced me to my wife. He found the house where we live in the country. He did innumerable things for me that I can never forget.
Mark, you're primarily a poet. Is there much of a market for poetry these days?
In one sense, Ed, there's very little market. We hear a good deal about that. In another sense, there's an enormous market, since all people live with poetry all of their lives. From their cradles and from their nurseries when they listen to Mother Goose, which is first-rate poetry in my opinion, on through the time when they hear songs and hear ballads and dance to songs, and perhaps in church hear hymns and learn things with the help of verses that rhyme, and throughout their lives, indeed, live with rhyme and live with verse. But it is well known that an individual who writes poems for people to read under his name and who publishes them in a book, it's well known that he may not find many readers, although some do.
Dorothy, do you have a favorite of all the poems Mark has written?
Well, I like a great many poems that he's written. I think he wrote a poem recently, which I think represents his character, if you like, very well, and I like it very much. And that's a poem called Morning Worship.
Mark, would you please read it for us?
I'd be glad to do that. This poem I wrote last summer, and I don't know to what extent it expresses my character. It expresses, certainly, a decision I then made to enumerate all of the things in the world that I considered necessary parts of it and beautiful parts of it, and things, furthermore, that I would miss when I went out of the world. That sounds morbid and isn't. Morning Worship. I wake and hear it raining. Were I dead, what would I give lazily to lie here like this and live? Or better yet, bird song, brightening and spreading. How far would I come then to be at the world's wedding? Now that I lie, though, listening, living, oh, but not forever, oh, end arriving, how shall I praise them, all the sweet beings eternally that outlive me in my dying? Mountains, I mean, wind, water, air, grass and huge trees, clouds, flowers, and thunder and night. Turtles, I mean, and toads, hawks, herons, owls, graveyards and towns and trout, roads, gardens, red berries, and deer. Lightning, I mean, and eagles, fences, snow, sunrise and ferns, waterfalls, serpents, green islands, and sleep. Horses, I mean, butterflies, whales, mosses and stars, and gravelly rivers and fruit. Oceans, I mean, black valleys, corn, brambles and cliffs, rock, dirt, dust, ice, and warnings of flood. How shall I name them, and in what order? Each would be first. Omission is murder. Maidens, I mean, and apples, needles, leaves, worms and planets and clover, whirlwinds, dew, bulls, geese. Stop. Lie still. You will never be done. Leave them all there, old lover. Live on.
Thank you very much, Mark Van Doren. I think those are things that we would all miss, and all of us would like to be able to write that well. Mark, the typewriter there beside you, is that the poet's instrument?
I think you better ask Dorothy about that typewriter.
Well, that typewriter came to me as a gift from my son Charlie, who's just had an experience on television, in the course of which he got a great many letters, and I read a lot of them, many hundreds of them actually. I was awfully interested in them. I found that they were from second graders and young girls who were anxious to make his acquaintance, and from a great many grandmothers and extremely respectable and elderly and so on people. And they all loved him. But one of the things that was most important to me was that people felt that it was reestablishing learning or information in the world. Mothers wrote that their children studied better. Girls wrote that for the first time they'd met a young man who wasn't a square and yet who knew something. So Charlie gave me the typewriter for doing the work for him.
So there was a sort of feeling that it is respectable to be intelligent.
That's exactly it, yes.
Dorothy, you have two homes, one here in New York and the other in the country. Which do you like best?
Well, I like them both. The house in Cornwall is big, and we have 150 acres of land. This house we used to live in 3 floors of. Now we have only this 1 floor. Mark, let's walk through and show them how little we have. This floor used to be the place where our children lived. We lived downstairs. And now this is the room where Charlie used to be. And actually, at this desk, I do my work, and Mark does his work in the other room.
Well, Mark, that's not a very long haul or a very long walk. Do you ever get any real exercise?
I get almost no exercise in New York except when I walk, which I like to do, especially on rainy nights. I get the exercise that I get in the country, on our place, where I repair things, I build things, I cut grass, scythe weeds, play with water in the pond, and so forth.
And so while you're in New York, most of your exercise is in conversation. Would that be fair?
Yes, that's right. I exercise my tongue.
Do you ever watch baseball at all?
Oh, yes. Yes, all of us have always watched baseball. I think I'm one of the few surviving Yankee fans, incidentally. I wouldn't say that that's true of all the family, but I am.
I see.
We've watched ball games in every way. We've gone to the games. We see them in radio and television, hear them in radio and see them on television. I think I remember most clearly playing ball with my sons when they were little boys. I'm rather proud of the fact that I taught them something. I think I did. They were standing to throw a ball with their feet like this, together. I said they would never be able to throw a ball, at least with their right hand, unless as they threw it, they moved forward with their left foot and made the throw, as girls never learned to do.
It's a very effective and persuasive movement. Mark, tell me, you've taught a great many things to a great many youngsters, haven't you?
Well, I hope so. I hope so. I say that without definite knowledge that I have. My memory of students is confined to the students of Columbia College, who are, I'm sure, extraordinarily good students. I admire them. I have been told by teachers who have taught elsewhere that one can be spoiled by teaching in Columbia College. The students are so good there, so eager and so responsive, and learn so well and so easily. One can be spoiled if one goes else for going anywhere else. I'm not sure that that's true, but I've heard it.
Do you acknowledge that there might be any other good college in the country, Mark?
Well, of course, there's the University of Washington, where you went. There's the University of Illinois, where I went. There's St. John's College in Annapolis, where my sons went.
Where I went.
Good.
Oh, there are plenty.
Thank you very much, Dorothy, for letting us come and visit you tonight. Thank you, Mark.
Thank
Good night.
you.
And
Good night.
Will you say hello to the two boys
We
when
will
you see them
indeed.
again, please?
Certainly.
Thank you very much. In just a moment, we'll take you for a visit with Elizabeth Taylor and her husband, Mike Todd.
You're looking at the site of the famous Florida Grand Prix of Endurance race for the Amoco Trophy. This year, 65 top drivers representing 20 sports car manufacturers competed in this annual 12-hour race classic. Avid sports car fans gathered to see this exciting event. Here you see the drivers running to their waiting cars as the race begins with the picturesque Le Mans start. And they're off. Lap after lap, these red-hot cars roar around the grueling 5 2/10 mile course. And imagine, this race is run under actual road conditions. The roads are not banked. It's a punishing test of men, machines, and motor fuel. These pros of the road leave nothing to chance. On this twisting, curving course, they can't afford to. They want only the best. And that's why they all use clear, white, unleaded Amoco gas. They know that in order to operate safely, their cars must operate efficiently. And only Amoco gas delivers 100% power without fouling their engines with damaging lead deposits. Here, Donald J. Smith, president of the American Oil Company, congratulates winner and world champion Juan Fangio, who, with co-driver Gene Barra, won with a Maserati. So take a tip from the pros. This weekend, fill up with the gasoline that's the first and only choice at the Florida Grand Prix. Stop in at the Amoco sign of greater values for clear, white, unleaded Amoco gas. And now here's Ed Murrow.
Mike Todd has been described as the most colorful producer since the late Flo Ziegfeld. He has also been described by Joey Lewis as a man who belongs on a runaway horse. Somewhere in between is the real Mike Todd, who made and lost his first million before he was old enough to vote. In show business, Mike had done just about everything except make a movie, so he made one, Around the World in 80 Days, and it won the Oscar. Mrs. Todd, Elizabeth Taylor, is counted among the 10 most beautiful women in the world, and Mike takes exception to this. And she is one of Hollywood's surest box office names. She's made movies since she was 13. Her latest is MGM's Raintree County. Elizabeth and Mike Todd live in a penthouse in this building on New York's East Side. They were married about 3 months ago, so they can rightly still be called honeymooners. Good evening, Liz. Mike, anybody home? Todd is always late, probably on the phone.
Come on, Liz. Liz.
Come out, Mike. Come out. How are you?
Liz, are you ready?
Of course.
That's
Mike.
my girl. That's the new Liz. She's ready.
Are you ready, Mike?
I always am, I hope.
You both had a hectic few weeks. Hey, Mike, come
Yes.
out. How's everything going?
Everything's going pretty good. I don't want it to get much better. I don't want it to get any worse, though. Good.
I'm not. Wait a minute, Mike.
Yes.
What's the picture there?
This Marcel Berthez. This is a balloon over Paris. This is when it came down. He did this before we did the picture.
Uh-huh.
And Marcel is a friend of mine, and he sent it to us. I've got a few other little pictures. If you want to take time, take in and let you see them.
Good. Mike, I know that Liz wasn't feeling too well a while back. How is she now?
She's all right. Nobody but you could get her out to do this tonight. In fact, I'm getting a little nervous about you, Ed.
Mike, it's about 20 years since you produced her first show called, what was it, Mr. Ziggy, right?
Call me Ziggy.
Okay,
You've got a good
Ziggy.
memory.
All right, Ziggy. You feel you're making progress?
Well, last night we opened, I know no commercials, but we opened that show, you called it a picture, Around the World in Chicago, and I made good in my hometown, so I think I'm making progress for the first time. So I think up till last night I was just sort of vamping till ready. Last night I made progress. Let's get to Liz.
Fine. That will be real progress.
Yes, sir. Harry, did you miss me?
Evening, Liz.
Hello, Ed. How are you?
Good. Is Mike sort of keeping you on the run?
On the run? First we came from Mexico, then we went to California, then we came to New York, then we went back to California, then we came to Chicago, then we went back to California, then we have a house in Palm Springs. Then we left Chicago last night at 9 o'clock this morning. And here we are.
Where to next?
Well, we're going to Europe for about 3 months. They're having the Cannes Festival over there. Mike's little old picture's going to show.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
How surprising and how wonderful. Must have startled him, huh? Liz, what about your own career? Are you going to continue making movies or just be a housewife?
Well, I couldn't really care less about making movies, to tell you the truth. I consider it much more important to be a good woman than a great actress, or any kind of an actress.
Can I get in here? I feel like Mr. Taylor, the way you introduced me here. Now, look, Ed, this woman is not only a great woman, she's a great actress. I saw, this is not a commercial, especially for Metro.
Yeah.
You know, I saw Raintree County, and it's going to probably be her last picture for a long time. And she is so good in it, and this is not because I'm making like a husband.
Yeah.
She really, in fact, it's vulgar. She's so good. She almost overdoes it. And it'll be very difficult to get her to darn my socks and, mend my shirts and do the dishes after seeing her. And she's really wonderful. Really, she is.
TR, just to do the dishes in.
You mean all people don't have tiaras? My goodness.
Mike, you were going to show us some more of your art.
That's a good idea. I'm so glad you asked.
Excuse me.
Is that it there? Just behind you?
No,
That's
no,
art?
No, that's. I'm so glad you asked about that too. That's that Oscar. I've got to have it engraved. They're just letting me hold it. No, that's not the art. Oscars, are like or medals.
Mike, some of your critics, what's happened to him now?
Here I am.
Is he on the telephone again?
No, just I couldn't help. We passed all those telephones, and I thought I heard one ringing, but I could have been mistaken. Well, oh my goodness, there's the duck.
Mike,
That's no prop either, by the way. Yes.
How come the duck?
Well, Mike won it. He spent $5 nickels winning it, or $10 or something, for my children. My son named it Chuck, so I had to bring it east with me because the children are coming with 2 dogs. And I figured it was all too much.
What are you going to do when the duck grows up?
Well, he's going to Europe.
You think you can take him on a plane, or you're going by ship?
Oh, we've already taken him on a plane. He got along beautifully. He was very good.
And I asked you to give up cats. That was one of the mistakes I made, Ed. I wish we'd had one of those cats now. Maybe that would have solved this.
Mike.
Well, all right. But anyways, we have a pact that if the children don't ask for a Chuck, we will have duck dinner or something.
Promise them no.
No, if they don't ask for them, we might get rid of them. But I
My wing.
yes, he does.
Mike,
Yes, Ed.
when you can take a little time off from taking care of the duck, what are you going to do next?
Next, well, I'm going to make like a playboy for a while. I'm going to take a weekend off, that's for sure, this weekend. And
that's a big deal for him to take one weekend.
Yeah.
And after that, I'm going to do Don Quixote, which I'm very excited about. We have a very good concept. And then I suppose I will be a playboy again for another weekend, and then probably do the Toscanini. That takes us into about 2 or 3 years from now. And then I'm going to make a career of taking care of ducks and children and things like that.
Mike, some of your critics say that much of your success is due to luck. You agree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that may toss you, but it proves that it's much better to be lucky than smart, of which I am a living example of. And ending that sentence with a preposition proves it. And being on the same program, by the way, with Mark Van Doren, I'm very grateful to you for that. Connor, I'm going to lecture next week at Harvard. Now, hold on. And you could have been teamed here with some lesser intellectuals like Maxie Rosenblum or something, so I'm glad of the typecasting this week. I was very smart of you.
Well, Mike, do you think success will spoil Mike Todd?
No, I don't think so, but it's certainly ruining my friends, Ed. Really it is, because people are, last week when we were in California, right after we won the Oscar, people would come up that would never even talk to me. You know, I couldn't even get them on the telephone. They'd come up and congratulate me, and I know that some of them meant it, of course. Most of them didn't, and it's really ruining so many of my friends. They let me talk too much now. People, I talk at, every time I see a half a grapefruit, I make a speech, Liz says.
The grapefruit circuit.
That she calls it. And it really is. It's spoiled most of my friends.
Mike, the picture on the wall behind the couch there, what is it?
Oh, that's Monet.
Mm-hmm.
We've just had that a little while, just before we got married. I bought it. And that is Pissarro. And that's Franz Hals, which is a very good picture.
And what?
All hand-painted, by the way, in case you don't know.
Really?
Yes.
Wonderful. Mike, what's the picture on the piano?
Piano, that's a picture of my dad, my father, who passed away a few years ago.
Mike, I can imagine that there must have been, imagine nothing, I know, that there were times in your youth when the going was a little rough, wasn't it?
Well, there were times when our governess and our butler, you know, had to take shorter, shorter pay. But I had little rough times. But in retrospect, I don't consider them rough at all. I thought they were very good training. I keep telling that to my son, but he's having real rough now. He's the fellow who's trying to keep the balance for the company. And he's doing a very good job, I might add. You know him. You know he's a very fine boy. Ed, we don't have a script, and I do want to tell you that Liz wasn't feeling well, but she perked up today. And her coming here, I was thinking maybe we could talk our way out of this, and she says, no, not for Murrow. Now, everybody talks about themselves. And I really do think, Ed, and I know that if you had seen, that's why I'm glad we're ad-libbing, but as a person, and I don't even know about you as an actor. I don't particularly like you that way, because last night, incidentally, in our show, on your prologue, you didn't do as good a performance as the rest of the actors. I watched that.
I think he was better.
No, he was a little more nervous last night than usual. Or maybe it was me, I don't know. But anyways, as a person, we think you're great, and I'm speaking for both Liz and myself, and it was, this is not rehearsed, obviously, or it's not prompted. And we like you. And when Liz talked about coming here tonight, she said, oh, not Murrow, we've got to be there. And now she's sub-bubbling. And about a half hour ago, I would have bet 2 to 1 that she wouldn't even make the show.
All right. Now, wait a minute, Mike. Now that she is bubbling, as you say.
Well, where are are the bubbles?
I would like to ask, well, your husband should know. He's the one who was describing you.
Sitting next to me.
Now that you are bubbling and inclined to level, what sort of fellow is Mike to live with? There's your answer, Todd. I'll get even with you for what you said about me being an actor.
Shall I really answer? Well, I think he's the nicest person I've ever lived with. No, he's a wonderful man. He has everything that you could possibly want. He has a wonderful sense of humor. I don't want him to hear this,
No.
but his head is big enough as it is.
Yes, it is.
And he's very generous, and he's very sympathetic. But I think the most wonderful thing of all is that he's a marvelous cook. So that saves me from the kitchen.
You know, that's one thing I can attest to. He really can cook.
He can. He's
Mike?
wonderful.
Mike?
This is a good spot for that song, that Mutual Admiration Society thing. I kind of like her, too, if you're going to ask me. I anticipated the question. Go ahead. That'll take the end.
All right, you've been asked.
Well, a good friend of mine, the sage, he said that he thought that Elizabeth must be a little bit spoiled. And he said that to me, and I said to him, well, I've never had so much fun spoiling anybody, and I'm going to keep it that way. And really, she's not spoiled, and we didn't have a script. You know, her even being ready on time tonight is a whole new tale. Todd, pardon me. Pardon me. Really, it's too wonderful.
Well, shall I tell how I got here on time? Mike told me the show started at 10.
Well, that's a white
And we
line.
had to change over at the West Area Hotel because there's so much stuff in here. And we arrived here at exactly 1 minute past 10. And I thought the show had already started, so we came bursting into the room.
Mike,
I used to have to say it was going to start at about 9 or 8:30. Now I've got it to the point where only a half hour. But it shows you the progress we're making. Go
Mike,
ahead.
you're a great showman. You won an Oscar and all that sort of thing with help from a lot of people. You deserve very little credit, if any. What are your comments in general about television?
Are you kidding?
Yeah, in 30 seconds.
Even with my new birth certificate, I am still too old for television, especially after seeing what goes on here. I'm too happy for television. That's for young fellas like you, Ed, and I'm not kidding. And I really am not kidding. As I told you, I want to be a playboy, and my idea of being a playboy is nothing like this.
All right, have a big weekend off, Mike.
So long, Ed.
Liz, thanks very much.
Thank you, Ed.
Good night, and thanks again for letting us come.
Good night.
Good night. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, flower planting time is here again, and that means seeds. How would you like to have this big free packet of Amico flower seeds, enough to make a big, colorful garden of zinnias, snapdragons, asters, marigolds, and cornflowers? Now, you get all 5 packets worth $1.10 absolutely free when you bring your car in for that needed Amico Super Permalube spring oil changeover or chassis lubrication. You need this service, so come on in. Now, here's Ed Murrow.
Next week, a visit with former Vice President Henry Wallace and his wife on their farm at South Salem, New York, and with jockey Ted Atkinson and his family at home on Long Island. Those are some of the people who made tonight's program possible. And now, from person to person, good night and good luck.
Next Friday, Person to Person will be presented by Life magazine. In this issue, as always, you'll find excitement, surprise, and information in Life's 17 picture stories. You'll fly over the Andes with 2 young college boys in a single-engine plane. See the most complete picture report yet on the blizzard that buried the Middle West. And learn in life just how far communism has gone in the Middle East and how we can combat it. Read Life and share in the world's most interesting events.